And with that, Peter speaks on behalf of the disciples, reminding Jesus that they have left everything in order to follow him. I think the reason the disciples are shocked at Jesus' declaration that it's hard to enter God's kingdom, and why Peter makes it a point to remind Jesus that they left everything behind in order to follow Jesus, is their way of asking whether or not they, the disciples, will enter into God's kingdom. Perhaps sensing the disciples' uneasiness, Jesus says that anyone who has left everything, including all that is precious to them in regards to relationship and resources, will receive more than what they need in this life and the next. Once again, this is Jesus' way of exaggerating to make a point. Jesus does not literally want his disciples to leave and disregard and everything that is so precious to them. However, Jesus wants to make it so very clear that to follow him is really serious stuff. Now, sometimes as a result of following him, there will be friction and tension in one's most cherished relationships. The scripture is so very rich, with many layers, so there's a lot that can be said about the scripture. There's both a preacher's that strain and worse than nightmare. It's equally challenging to have too much material to work with and too little material to work with. What strikes me most about this man, about the scripture, is this man who comes to Jesus at the beginning of our scripture, and he comes on his own free will. There's no outside force influencing him. He's not suffering any great physical illness or deficiency that needs immediate care or attention. Instead, this man is struggling on the inside. In a way, he's having a crisis of faith. This man is following all the commands, and he has ever since he was young. His parents probably went to great lengths in order to ensure that their son was obedient. However, despite the faithfulness of this man in our scripture, he sensed there was something wrong. There was something missing. And he went up to Jesus to find out what it was. This man did not feel fulfilled by simply following the laws and commands. And Jesus confirms this man's suspicions by saying that he indeed lacks something. For Jesus, it's not enough to follow the laws and commands, because if we only did that, then there would be a sense of something lacking, of incompleteness like this man in our scripture. Jesus said he did not come into the world to null and void the commands and laws, but to fulfill them, to expand upon them, to make them more whole and complete. This list of commands that Jesus lifts up in our scripture, which are the same ones this man had been following for so long, are thou shalt not. Meaning they are all behaviors we ought to avoid. And that's good and fine. There's nothing wrong with that. We all need reminders of what not to do. However, there's more to following and living like Christ than knowing what behaviors and actions to avoid. What not to do is only half the battle. In order to be complete, lacking nothing, we must know what to do. And that's to live and act in radical ways that benefit all of God's children. Such as selling what one has, selling our stuff that, we really don't need anyway, and giving the proceeds to those who really need it. Throughout our scripture, Jesus hints that the key to entering into living to God's kingdom, both in the now and hereafter, is to be in good relationship with each other, participating in behaviors that lift one another up. And here's the real deal. It's not enough that we don't exploit, harm, and discriminate against the least of these in society, our brothers and sisters. That's good, but it's not enough. Jesus makes that so very clear in our scripture. What is more important than avoiding doing bad to another is consciously choosing to do good. So maybe in the scripture, Jesus was telling those who would listen to not only follow the thou shalt nots, but also live into some thou wills that lead to a life of radical devotion towards the welfare and well-being of others. And sometimes, in order to do that, to look out for others, to have others' best interests in mind, we need to unpack our stuff. Our physical and emotional and mental stuff. Stuff that gives us a false sense of security and purpose. What are some of the stuff in your life that needs to be unpacked in order for you to more fully, deeply walk in the ways of Christ? And more importantly, what thou wills do you need to adopt and live into so that you can more fully be a resident in God's holy kingdom? And the whole church said,